Alvin Bragg won't do anything about the rampant crime in his city. The GOP said they will. The House Judiciary Committee announced its intentions to hold a field hearing in New York next week in downtown Manhattan to examine how Bragg's pro-crime, anti-victim policies have led to an increase in violent crime. Victims of Bragg's failure to prosecute are expected to be the witnesses. Now, this, of course, as Alvin Bragg sets all his focus on instituting a novel legal theory to bring the first ever criminal case against a former president, Donald Trump, therefore not protecting his constituents. Instead, Bragg's office shamelessly claims New York is the safest city in America, an absolutely laughable claim if you step foot in that city since he took over. A spokesperson for his office said this today, quote, "Don't be fooled. The House GOP is coming to the safest big city in America for a political stunt. This hearing won't engage in actual efforts to increase public safety, such as supporting national gun legislation and shutting down the iron pipeline." Again, this coming from the man who's downgraded 52% of felony cases to misdemeanors and has presided over the 22% increase in New York major crimes. To discuss this hearing, I'd like to welcome someone from the House Judiciary Committee, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, always great to have you here in studio.
Thanks for having me. And it seems that New Yorkers are clinging to their yoga mats in fear as a consequence of the streets being turned over to the criminal element. And what we know, Jen, is that this didn't happen by accident. I remember when Rudy Giuliani was mayor, and all Americans took such pride in New York, in the progress and the success and the ambition. It was viewed as a place where you went to make your dreams come true. And now New York is slug it out fest with whatever person was just released on cashless bail or had their matter downgraded. And so our hope is to showcase how the outcomes, more violent streets, more damage to people's lives, is not an accident, but it's a direct consequence of policy choices that we hope are not made in other parts of the country.
And, you know, he calls it the safest big city in America, which, again, laughable, especially if you live there. I think a lot of people would disagree with that, no matter how much they live in New York City. I understand you'll be hearing from some of the victims of Bragg's soft on crime policies. Tell us about that, because it's also not just people of New York or people that visit New York, but the police officers, too. You look at them and how they've been victimized by this, dealing with this uptick in crime, oftentimes being the targets themselves of these crimes.
We are very proud of law enforcement all over the country. And when politicians embrace policies that put the criminals over law enforcement and over law-abiding citizens, that really makes the men and women in blue sitting ducks in many cases. And a lot of the policing reforms pursued by Democrats are all driven to try to keep the cops in the car, not doing proactive policing, keeping communities safe. And so we want to hear about how that experience has changed, folks. Frankly, I hear from a lot of New York police officers when they make their new forever home in Florida, where we actually respect our law enforcement.
So let me show some data here. So Bragg's office, they claim that, quote, virtually every crime in category is lower in Manhattan now. That's patently false. In 2022, New York City saw the most amount of felony crimes than it has in 15 years. More than 170,000 were reported, which is the most since 2006. That number is up 20% from 2021. And then not to mention, of course, you know, Bragg's lack of prosecutorial initiative. People have been fleeing the city in droves. I mean, practically putting U-Haul into really great business as they all go down to your state in Florida. Will you be asking Alvin Bragg to testify at this hearing?
Well, the House Judiciary Committee, House Oversight Committee, House Administration Committee have sought Alvin Bragg's testimony regarding how he's operating his office, the extent to which federal resources were used either through grants or even through the special counsel process to try to animate what is really a bizarre and embarrassing legal theory that he's trying to advance against the former president. And on the streets of New York, just because Alvin Bragg doesn't punish an activity as if it was a crime doesn't mean it wasn't a crime. Doesn't mean that there isn't a victim class that is now being expanded because the woke left doesn't want to deal with the permanent criminal element that terrorizes people. And the worry is that it's New York today, but it could be any other big city, any other medium-sized city tomorrow if we don't showcase how bad these choices are. And it is rather rich that they would pursue the former president for a business dispute when the disputes that are leading to bloodshed are the ones in the metros in New York, not in the boardroom.
Such a great point. You think about the people that defend themselves that he's pointing to as the criminals versus the ones actually committing the crime. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, always so great to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Jen.